Oh, by the way, fucking Danielle.
No way. No, you shouldn't say her name.
No,
She's gonna probably watch this.
I don't know. Is
Alright,
that
edit
too
that
loud?
out.
I'm just looking at the microphone volume. Hold on.
Okay, our unnamed friend and comrade and patriot.
Oh, you're recording. Stop. I did not know. I didn't stop. Hold on. We'll record together.
Yeah.
Hold on. Yeah, but so yeah, stop that one. We'll restart it.
No, just keep it rolling.
Keep
It's all
going.
right. She'll love the fact that that person.
What's up, everybody? All right, guys, we got the Saturday show on a Monday. All right, I got Mr. Price Stupid back here. He's back from his hypnotherapy down in Durango. We decided we were going to do this show kind of impromptu and on the fly because we didn't get a chance to last weekend. I had the podcast with Natalie. So Joe is back and we're here to touch base on some things. Joe, why don't you tell everybody how the hypnotherapy went?
Well, it went really well. So shout out to Dr. Holly Duckworth out of Durango, Colorado. She's great. If you ever get the chance to look up, if you're kind of in the Dolores Cannon camp and you've been reading some of her books and you would like to try that technique, that QHHT, Quantum Hypnotherapy technique for yourself, then, and you're kind of in the Four Corners area, then Durango, Dr. Holly Duckworth, flying colors, just really worthwhile.
That's pretty awesome, man. That's pretty cool.
No way you could be disappointed by the experience unless you're a jerk.
well, you know,
Like if you prime yourself for disappointment in any experience, of course you will. That's exactly what you'll manifest. But if you have an open mind and a curious heart, then it's just the kind of experience I think you could benefit from.
I agree wholeheartedly. I've done hypnotherapy before. I actually a member of the spiritual meetup group that we go to out here. She did it on me, and I gotta say, the one thing we were talking about even before we recorded this, it's hard for people who've been meditating a long time or people who are truly aware to be hypnotized. It's a tough encounter. And, you know, it's kind of funny because I myself, I've been meditating for 15 years, and the hypnotherapist herself said, like, if you didn't really know how to do all this stuff, it would have definitely taken longer and it wouldn't have been as efficient per se. But, I mean, it's kind of interesting. Joe's higher self touched base with him a little bit on some of the events from his story. So
yeah, that was nice to hear confirmation from my subconscious. Really, that process is not going to complete you. It's nothing too magical. It's like, we'd like to talk to Joe's subconscious, and what did you think of this thing? And here, my liminal mind never really left. Some people say that it feels like they're waking up from anesthesia when the whole process is done. For me, my liminal mind was never completely out of the picture, but that doesn't mean it didn't work. The technique did absolutely work, where I was able to, my subconscious mind was able to answer questions without my conscious mind interfering with those answers.
that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's a cool thing, man. And I think I might be next on the book for something like that.
Sure.
I have a lot of questions that we'd like to.
It's Aware Care, Colorado, out of Durango. Dr. Holly Duckworth, PhD, is the practitioner of she's kind of learned from Dolores Cannon herself on how to do, and wow, she just, I guess my concern is that sometimes therapists and practitioners tend to make it about themselves and how great they are. That's not the case with Dr. Holly. She really does. She's a great listener, and at the very least, the entire process was focused on me, which I didn't necessarily expect or need, but it was like a refreshing thing to finally have someone that's like a doctor that's not trying to make it about them and their technique and how great they are, but someone that just was authentically listening. And sometimes it just feels so good to be listened to, you know, especially if you're like a person that's not used to being listened to.
I could totally resonate with that, man. I think it's great to actually have somebody listen. It's great to have that person. I try to be that guy for you as much as possible.
You are, dude.
Yeah, I try to be that guy for you as much as possible, as you are for me
absolutely.
too, man. And one thing I do want to touch base on, especially on this episode, is some predictions for 2023.
Okay.
I've talked to in a couple of my shows, I've talked about some of the things I believe that are going to go on. And the number one thing I think that is probably going to happen this year. So on the podcast with Natalie on Saturday, she was talking about how Pluto, y'all know we had the Pluto return start in 2021. And that was a very pivotal thing because Pluto and the signifier with astrology and stuff rips up the old control structure. It rips up the power-hungry control structure that's been kind of keeping us at bay for a long time, and it sets forth the seeds for the new rebirth that's going to occur. But one interesting thing Natalie did say that is in March, Pluto's going to be entering Aquarius. And Aquarius is the age we're currently about to be heading into. So the outpouring. So one thing I theorize though about that too is a lot of the children that are going to be born this year are going to be definitely highly gifted. That is number one thing that I do believe. I think that I've talked about it before. We're approaching a renaissance. We're starting to get there. We're going to have new ideas, new music, new arts, new thoughts, new philosophies. And one of my big predictions, I think, too, is we're going to get a pivotal kind of unveiling during that period of time. Now, I don't think it might not be the official rug pulling moment. However, but what I do feel is that this time it's going to be hard to ignore. Like with CVID, a lot of people still got kind of caught up in it, with the show, the stage, and things like that. This time, I believe it's going to be so obvious that you're going to have even less people getting caught up in it and more people asking questions. What do you think about that, Joe?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the overall thrust of 2021, 2022, 2023, if you add those all up, you get 6, 0, negligible, 6, 6. A great 3 years, really, for bringing about the interview with the devil. Your deal with the devil. What does that look like? To be given the opportunity to identify with your autocratic, control-seeking self that wants to tell other people what to do, meanwhile ignoring your own faults. That's the 666 fleshy self getting a chance to have all it wants. To be that cart before the horse man that tells other people, oh, wear your mask, keep the vaccine, 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart,
Vaccine safe, but...
but all that's, so far, the amazing thing is that the people that bought into that mindset are looking increasingly ridiculous right now.
Yes, I would agree. I would have to agree wholeheartedly too. So actually, Dan Underwood, shout out to you, man. You had a post doing statistics from the swine flu vaccine, the rotavirus vaccine, and then the CVID vaccine. So swine flu vaccine, what did it have? 1 bad case in 100,000, and they recalled it. Rotavirus had 2 bad cases in 10,000, recalled it. And now the CVID vaccine has 1 bad case for every 800 and is promoted.
Right. It's promoted. It's good to go. I can't see a thing wrong with it.
They knew it was 99.6% effective before they even made it. They already knew.
That's right. I saw this meme that was like, it was something ridiculous. It was like, man dies from COVID vaccine, but it would have been much worse if he hadn't had the vaccine.
I love how they do that, man. I swear that, like I said, it's getting trolled into the awakening. Like even with the article Tim Pool did, that how people who didn't get the COVID vaccine are more likely to get into auto crashes or auto accidents. I'm like, this is what I'm talking about, man. Getting trolled into awakening, but it is.
Okay, so this actually reminds me of something that was really salient and really pivotal that came away from my experience in Durango.
Okay.
And it was something that Dr. Holly recommended. She had several books that I could pick from, and I've already read a lot of the ones that she had on her shelf. So the one that she recommended and the one that I agreed with was Convoluted Universe by Dolores Cannon. And this was book 5. And the specific reason why she recommended it was because in the table of contents, there is chapter 18, which is the backdrop people.
The backdrop.
The backdrop people. And a lot of what I was telling her in the interview prior to the hypnosis session, and then even during the hypnosis session, related back to this idea of backdrop people. And I don't want to put words in her mouth, but we had this long discussion about what backdrop people are. And we've mentioned on this show over and over again the idea of actors and the invisible college and this haunted house kind of place where you have a bunch of Confederates that know what the score is, and they're surrounding a person that's being tested in some kind of way to see what kind of person they are. Are they a violent person? Are they the type that would shoot up a post office or a school or a hospital? What I think is happening is there's a bunch of people around the world, maybe a very small fraction, let's say less than 1% of people, that have a big red flag above their head in some database, the Galactic Federation database. And the Galactic Federation, one by one, is going through this list of people with red flags over their head, and we could talk about what gets you a red flag.
There's a lot of things that could probably...
A lot of things that could potentially land you on a list, a no-fly list, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But the point is that this group, one by one, sets up a scenario, a false flag, okay? Call it by any other name would be a false flag, where they get this person kind of surrounded and isolated. Again, think siege, not ambush. Mm-hmm. And they let that person play out their worst tantrums. They might hand them a gun. The gun is full of blanks. Think Alec Baldwin, okay? And the gun is full of blanks. And they let that person believe that they've just committed an accidental murder and see what they do. Or they let that person believe that they've just landed themselves in a mental institution and see what they do.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And so they give you all the rope you need to hang yourself. If you're the type of person with the red flag over their head, there's a lot of boring people out there. I'm sorry to say. There's a lot of do nothings, be nothings, go with the flow, sheep, wear the mask, don't wear the mask, do whatever the people around you are doing. Those people are never going to go through this test.
It's not. So the number one thing too, this what Joe's saying, I unfortunately I do have to agree there are, and some of those people, ones we would coin the people pleasers.
Right.
Definitely kind of contribute to that situation.
Right.
And I do think that, so actually it was funny. So I brought up the first the Star Wars or the Star Trek Next Gen first episode with Natalie on the podcast.
You did it?
Yep.
The Q episode?
Yep. Okay. So I ran it by her and I was like, and I was like, well, listen, look, so me and my buddy Joe, we have this theory that, right now we're kind of being tested. And she was like, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, I do believe this is a simulatory, fabricated reality we live in. I do think it really began back in 2012, like I stated. And right now, we are being tested as a species, as a race, to see if we are ready to branch out, basically, in that aspect. Right. And I brought up to her the Star Trek episode where they wanted to go intermingle with other races, and they're like, well, we got to put you through this simulatory test first to see if you're going to act out any cruelty or act out egotistically or anything like that.
Or are you going to use your egoic judgment, judge, jury, executioner, Judge Dredd, RoboCop, your robotic judgment of other people? Are you going to exercise that, or have you really gotten over it? You guys might think you've gotten over it, but let's see.
Exactly. And I think that is what's going. I mean, I personally feel that's what's going on right now. I think we are at the pivotal moment of the testing ground. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I've even talked about it in the morning show. I mean, look at the symbolism behind everything right now. The one thing I even talked about is how the idols are false that we worship. And I mean, I know a lot of the people, some people might kind of cringe when I say this, but the whole Liver King situation, I think, was a huge, big symbolism to show you that your idols are false. There's not a lot of this stuff, even the downfall of Hollywood, even the downfall Amazon, the mainstream media, all of that. Balenciaga, all of that stuff.
Kanye West.
Oh yeah,
the Kardashians.
It's all showing you that it's all a false framework, and I think that is the most beautiful thing that we've kind of got out of this so far, is that really all in all, the big thing I think is being pointed to us is you guys have to stop looking for something to save you, and we have to save ourselves.
So true, so true.
And I feel that wholeheartedly, and that's why I think, a lot of people feel like, Jesus is going to appear. I'm not saying he's not, but, and a lot of people feel like there's going to be these benevolent extraterrestrials that come down and save us from our captives and free us. But like, in all honesty, we're going to have to be those people. We're going to have to be the ones who do it.
Yeah. So back to like the name, let's like look at the name Trump for a second. Like, what do you think of when you hear Trump? I think of a Trump suit. I think of cards.
I think as well.
I think of a card deck.
I think also.
And what I know is that sometimes different suits can be Trump. In the game Spades are Trump. In the game Hearts are Trump. The Trump card's always changing. It's hard to say if it's for the Ace of Spades or if it's the Two of Clubs or whatever. It's game dependent, whatever the Trump card is. And what I keep hearing from the Dolores Cannon crowd and her research patients that she worked with kept saying that like there's that the game's in flux, and that they keep saying the deck was stacked. So you go to Dolores Cannon, you get that the deck was stacked. Then in 2016, you had this dark horse character that wasn't a politician all of a sudden miraculously win the election, although the media was against him. Hollywood was against him. People started having Trump derangement syndrome, which was a real thing.
Orange man bad.
I was like,
bad.
I thought this person had some reasoning skills, and they're like just ridiculously against a person that the 2 years ago they didn't care about, and now they say this person is Hitler, Satan, orange man bad. It was like people were under hypnotism, like they just became zombies on the subject of Trump. It was so strange.
Well, it is, because honestly, it's the and I would encourage y'all to look up MK Ultra. It's not a conspiracy; it's a real thing. There was a lot of pivotal brainwashing taking place during that period of time, not just with Trump, but with COVID also.
Yeah.
And I mean, the way you can tell somebody's been brainwashed is when you ask them a question that deviates away from the subject matter of the brainwashing. They cannot answer that question. They will respond in subject matter that is directly related to the brainwashing context.
It wasn't a matter of IQ either. That was the funny part. Because like I was a huge fan of Sam Harris. I listened to every podcast he did. And he was on Joe Rogan. I thought, like, this guy, he's a sharp cookie. And then when it came to the subject of Trump, he lost his fucking marbles. Like, it just seems like TDS all the way, and it's like, I can't even listen to this guy. He's just endorsed Joe Biden, who is some kind of robot.
He's not the real Joe Biden. He's not, man. And, and you guys can even take a freaking two photos, guys, side by side. Him from the 80s, early 90s, and him now. He does not look the same, and people think it's crazy that we say that, but I mean, you even look at Joan Rivers, who passed. When she passed away, she made a post that said that Obama's gay and Michelle's a transgender. And then, what happened to her?
The memes have been rolling in on the Michael Obama thing.
The Michael Obama thing for a while.
Michael Obama Robinson. Okay, like, it's gray sweatpants season, and it shows a picture of Mike.
Oh, shit. Well, even talking about the background people, so that's kind of even where I started to believe that, is because, like, I started to look at, a lot of people hear me talk about COVID, but like, I think for me, COVID was a pivotal turn in the awakening process here on this planet. It forced a lot of people into awakening, and that's why I do talk about it the way I do.
We love COVID. Thank you, COVID. We love you more than
Invisible
Nancy
College.
Pelosi.
You did a great job.
Yeah, it's like,
you did a great job on that one.
At first, I thought I felt like I was getting raped in the butt, and then it felt kind of cool.
At first, I didn't mind that it didn't take me out to dinner first, and at least try to
it's like it fucked me on Christmas. It fucked me on my birthday.
It fucked me every day.
On Easter. Well, I like to be wined and dined before I get fucked, but then
Exactly.
COVID-19 just came along and fucked everybody.
COVID is not about foreplay. We'll put it that
Yeah.
way. But anyways, you know, but same thing. I'm looking at all these people.
And
who
then
are,
wait, Trump was kind of like, I kind of endorse it, I kind of don't, I kind of take both sides of this. Operation Warp Speed, get the vaccine, but you'll understand that the vaccine is a complex metaphor for something about communism, but you won't get that because you're fucking stupid and grab him by the pussy and
we're going
vote for me in 2020. Okay.
We're getting Warp Speed done, under budget, understaffed, but it's happening. All right, but like,
Well, you're supposed to understand that I hate Bill Gates and I hate Jeffrey Epstein, but I'm going to give them all kinds of money because that money is like rope that's going to hang them, and you'll understand this complex metaphor. Okay, so just go with it, okay?
just go with it. But you know, as I was saying, that was great. As I was saying, you know, that's where I started to really believe the backdrop people, and you know, some people call it NPC theory, was during the whole that time because
But non-player characters, backdrop people, the invisible college, okay, these, but mostly just NPCs is my favorite term for it. Non-player characters. They're just like backdrop people. And now the fraction of who is a real person with real blood that was born versus people that are just like fillers in a crowd so that when you walk into the airport, there's a long line at the TSA.
Well,
which is it?
Well,
what is the fraction? Is it 90-10, 80-20, 50-50? I don't know.
So here's actually, so this happened to me on Friday. So here's a good way to tell if like you're surrounded by actors, and this is actually a really good. I didn't even get a chance to tell you about this. So you know, Friday it was snowy stuff like that. I had a very short day at work, and I decided to go stop by Starbucks. I don't usually do that, but I had a little bit of extra bucks and I needed some coffee. I love my coffee, y'all know that. So I went to this Starbucks off Federal Boulevard in Denver here, and it was either 44th or 49th, somewhere up in Highlands. And when I walked into this Starbucks, now mind you, every single person behind the counter was wearing a mask, but the vibe was off. Like, and I guess the best way what I mean by the vibe is off is the vibe was strange. And the best way I can describe that is I felt like, I guess internally and in an intuitive factor, like these people did not want me here for whatever reason.
Like you accidentally walked into Patonkin Village.
I accidentally walked into a Patonkin Village of some kinds. Like these people did not want me here. They had their masks on. They did not look me in the eyes. You know, they took my drink order and somehow didn't even ask for my name, but then my drink got to me somehow, which was weird. But it's just, it's paying attention to the subtle, you guys, and this is how they operate. The subtle is where they get their guise of plausible deniability because it's so subtle, right? Like, you know, for instance, I told you guys the story last time we were here about how I was in the supermarket. I was sick, you know, I was grocery shopping, and I went to go grab a thing of blueberries out of the case, and it accidentally hit the plastic and it dumped all over the floor. Before I could even react, this man comes up to me out of nowhere, looks directly at me, goes, "I got you, man. Hold on." Turns around to the deli counter, takes the blame. Okay, goes, "Hey, I accidentally dropped this case of blueberries over here. Would you guys mind you know, getting somebody to clean it up?" And then just disappeared. I looked through the whole fucking store for this guy when I got done because I never got to say thank you and he was not there. And I saw his shopping cart. It was not that full. I figured he might have had a couple more things to grab. So, and this is where even my lady was looking at it like that was really strange. And I was like, well, you know, an average person, and this is how I know this was not an average person, and this is what I mean the subtle. Okay, this is a key factor. An average person would not have taken the blame. Even the goodest of goodest hearts average person would have not taken the blame. Don't get me wrong, they would have helped me get help to clean it up, and they would have sat there and cleaned it up with me. Don't get me wrong, but they would have not taken the blame. This guy seemingly appeared to just show up out of nowhere, take the blame for what I had done, and then just disappear without a trace. So this is what I mean paying attention to the subtle, you guys, is when the subtle is where they get their guise of plausible deniability. But if you can see past that, you see like, hey, this is not actually what it seems. So I guess like that would be like a really good example scenario of something to look for when we're talking about these actors or these invisible colors.
Oh, you know, I keep thinking about like, how come all the actors, it just seems so difficult. It's difficult. Like even with the best of actors, as a director, you have to give them an emotional situation for them to get into character and give you the scene on film that you're going for. So how do these people so consistently just fall into character as, they're not that intelligent. They're basically, the most simple people around you. And how do they so consistently fall into that Forrest Gump type, like, well, stupid is as stupid does, like, how is the Matrix so perfect consistently? And I think what it has to do is, like, you got to go to the movie The Sixth Sense, where Haley Joel Osment says they don't know they're acting. And that's the key to understanding how the Truman Show gets made. That's because they don't know they're acting.
And that is, that's a very good point that you bring up, because I can't tell you.
They don't know they're dead. They don't know they're acting.
They don't know they're dead. They don't know they're acting. I do think there are some that do know they're acting. I do think there are some that are conscious that they're acting, but they're just really good at it, and that's what they do.
So let's just recap, like, the movies that we've mixed our metaphors with: The Matrix, Truman Show,
Yes,
Sixth Sense. So that's just the way it goes. Like, if we can't be calling this a spoiler alert,
we can't,
because the movies have already done it. Okay, Kubrick did it back in the 70s, and he did it well. Like with the movie Barry Lyndon, it starts out with the titular character Barry Lyndon. He's in love with his cousin, but the cousin realizes, to her better judgment, that she can't marry her cousin. She has to marry this well-to-do banker type. So Barry, being the obnoxious upstart that he is, played by Ryan O'Neal, he says, I declare a duel. So he challenges this rich banker type guy to a duel. And then you start to see what the Freemasons have been doing. Like, Kubrick was so good at exposing what Freemasons have been doing for eons. And he shows how the Freemasons are, oh, you declared a duel. Okay, well, we will host the duel. It'll be 2 weeks from now. Yeah. And they pack the pistols for the two gentlemen, and they stage a death. And, they let the Ryan O'Neal, Barry Lyndon character, act out all of his rage, throw his tantrum, get his duel and his pride taken care of. And then once his enemy has been vanquished in battle, they send him off and say, like, here's a pouch of gold. You better get the road, man. Like, you just killed the guy. Yeah. This is not going to end up well for you.
Witness protection program.
And they just send him on his way with a pouch full of gold. And then lo and behold, on the road, first thing he runs into is a bandit that robs him.
Yep.
Gets the gold.
That is the freaking irony.
Says, you better not stick around here, son. You better get out of here.
Indeed, dude. Well, that's
Freemasons controlling it at every step, just like when Eyes Wide Shut, just like in Full Metal Jacket, just like in The Sting.
Well, what's funny is because when I did my solo show on the simulation in the Invisible College, so the one thing that I brought to the table was some actual scientific fact of physics experiments that we know consciousness creates reality. This is where physics has been heading, that consciousness collapses the waveform function. Nothing is really there till we observe it. On top of that, we have the double slit experiment, which practically proves that the results of scientific experiments are subjective depending on who's viewing the experiment itself. So, and then we talked about the implicate-explicate order, where I talked about that is actually one of the unified field theories of the universe with consciousness included at this point in time. So we have to remember, guys, that consciousness creates reality, right? So how do you fabricate a reality? How do you shift a narrative? You control the consciousness. So this is how it's done, okay? And this is how they do it. And this is what I mean. Like, for instance, like a good example, like I said, let's say Sandy Hook wasn't a hoax. Right. Let's say.
What was it then? If it was not,
it wasn't. But still,
it was a real event.
They used. If it was a real event, still, this even takes case in point where they used that incident to control the consciousness of people, right, and to control and fabricate the reality because
Well, okay. What about this possibility? Because I haven't heard anybody kick this one around.
Let me hear it.
Every false flag is two things in one.
I agree.
Okay, It is a cudgel for the population, obviously, to get them to do whatever their worst instincts tell them to do. And also, It is it's a little mini movie that was a staged event, and there's one person within that movie, usually the main character, maybe the shooter, that was not privy to what was going on. And they give that person a gun full of blanks, trade it out for a gun full of blanks, and they say, let's see what this person does.
Right.
And then they open fire on a crowd of people, and the crowd of people faithfully get mowed down. And these are extras.
Yep.
And they have the fake blood spurting out of their chest, squirting all over everybody. And the shooter thinks, oh good, I've gotten my vengeance on the world. I've killed a bunch of people. Meanwhile, they haven't killed anybody.
Exactly. And that's a very interesting thing you bring up there. I would, because we've talked about, double speak in both sides, and that would be a very, I would expect that 100%.
Right. So, any more than Edward Norton should feel guilty for being in the movie American, what is it?
History X.
History X, okay. Should he feel guilty for playing that role? The role of a neo-Nazi, a skinhead that hates black people and uses the N-word? No, he was depicting a type of person that he's definitely not.
Exactly.
In real life. So, if you hate Adam Lanza or the Unabomber or Ted Bundy, then you might as well hate Edward Norton and Christian Bale for the roles that they played where they were psychopaths. Exactly.
This even kind of plays into the notion of the balance also. There's no absolutes, guys. There's no absolute good and there's no absolute evil. There are two sides of the same thing. Light cannot exist without darkness. Darkness can't exist without light. Sometimes good things come out of bad situations and bad things will manifest from good situations. And this is really a key point that I try to drive home, that we both try to drive home when it comes to this as well, is because, we might look at something that is bad, all right, and we might view it as being objectively bad. For instance, I know a few people who woke up from the Wayfair cabinet an incident, and albeit yes, that's a horrible thing. If that, I do believe that was part of the show as well.
Wayfair, Balenciaga,
all that stuff's
Pizzagate, Comet Ping Pong and Pizza.
But look at what happened. Is it turned people? It awoke in something in people. It made them think and realize that, hey, maybe there's something going on that we need to be aware of. Maybe there's something going on that we need to actually pay attention to, because this is a key point I try to drive home, guys, and that is true. You look at Edward Norton, even Tyler Durden, all those,
Brad Pitt,
all those guys,
Christian Bale, they've all been in Benicio del Toro. These are all people there that have played psychopaths in movies that we love, and we're thinking, oh, I can't wait to see the next Benicio del Toro movie or the next Brad Pitt movie. And we don't expect them to be serial killers in the next one. They're going to be some kind of hero,
Exactly.
Tyler Durden was a figment of Tyler Durden's imagination. We think, what a badass. We fucking love Tyler Durden, this guy is our Buddha. We want to be just like him.
The one thing
Operation Mayhem.
I joke about, though, is you could take Fight Club and put the Invisible College. What's the rules of Invisible College? We don't talk about the Invisible College. No, it's
but I keep thinking about in that movie when they keep threatening somebody, they hold a gun to his head and they say if you're not on your way to being a veterinarian in 2 weeks, we're gonna fucking kill you.
Exactly.
They take his ID. They don't mean it, but they're we just changed that guy's life.
Yeah.
Well,
you see what I'm saying is sometimes it's. As speaking from my personal experiences that have happened to me in my life, I've had a lot of really harsh, really pivotally, I guess you could say, scarring, crazy things happen to me. But like you just said, they changed my life. Yeah. And in a lot of ways, they pushed me on the path I am on today. So it's you might have that person, that actor that comes into your life that you might think is malevolent. You might think has ill will, but
absolutely.
But in all reality, they they pushed you, and I'm actually kind of having, as I'm talking about this, profound realization about some people that could have possibly been in my life, but they could have been the ones to help push you alongside, because that's the pragmatism aspect of it. That's the higher dimensional pragmatism. We're like, well, if we act like this and showcase this, he's going to realize that this is not what he wants.
Absolutely.
And then he's going to actually realize what it is that he does want, and he's going to go for that.
Right. That's the foil character aspect. I mean, there's, in a Shakespeare play, you have a couple main characters, and then you have foil characters and spear carriers and other characters that are just there for all intents and purposes as backdrop people. Okay, so there's one more main movie or show that I wanted to bring into this elaborate metaphor that we're trying to draw here, and that is Westward, okay? And this came to me when I was having a conversation with my dad last night, because I was trying to see if a boomer could latch on to this subject, and I think it's hopeless, basically, based on my very intelligent father. He just could not track the metaphor, which was, I thought, pretty plain and obvious, which is that if you have a story with a hero and a villain, that the villain isn't necessarily a villain in real life, that, you know, and that if we're watching a movie in real life that's trying to be like a story, then the villains wouldn't really be villains. But he was like, no, there's evil out there. We gotta be afraid. Gotta be afraid of the evil. Gotta be afraid.
Gotta be afraid of the evil.
So I was thinking, okay, so the boomers are basically lost. You know, they're not gonna get this. Doesn't matter. Okay, so come with me to the last leg of this metaphor, which is Westworld on HBO, where these humans come to an amusement park which is inhabited by very lifelike humanoid robots, kind of like the Stepford Wives, or these robots are indiscernible from actual humans. You can't, they feel real, they sound real, they look real, you can have sex with them, you can shoot them and they die. The only difference is, at the end of the day, all the robots in the amusement park get rejuvenated and they have their memories wiped, okay?
Yeah.
So that's Westworld season 1. Eventually the robots become sentient and take over the world, and obviously that's what's going to happen. But just focus on season 1. Now, what I'm suggesting is that if these NPCs and these backdrop characters, these foil characters, these actors that aren't as real as you, dear listener, it doesn't matter how you, if it's 90% or 80% or 60%, doesn't matter. If you're the type of person that would treat a robot kindly, that's what this test is really about.
It is
like, they're just robots? I guess I might as well rape and kill them and torture them, because that's what I want to do. Wrong answer, okay?
Exactly.
No, treat the robot, not knowing who's real and who's a robot, you treat everybody the same way, which is with integrity.
Yeah. And we all need a little bit of integrity.
Yeah.
But no, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think that's the test we're undergoing.
Right.
And that's why I think, in all honesty, that we're still going to be kind of closed off until we can pass this test, I guess you could say, from further seeing anything else. I mean, this is a big thing as to why I'll even entertain this narrative for a while, that some people will call them extraterrestrials. I think of them a little bit differently. Why they haven't shown themselves exactly yet, because in an aspect, we're not done with this test.
There's got to be some people out there with red flags glaring above their skulls. They're like they're in Diablo, and instead of some kind of like mage icon above their head, they got a red flag. And the aliens are like, that guy, and that guy. Well, which order? Well, that guy's got a bright red flag. That guy's kind of like a dull pink. We can let him. Okay, we'll get him next week. Next week.
He's the task for next week. But that, exactly, he's the point of what Joe's saying. I mean,
like that guy bought fucking 6 AR-15s last week. He's got a bright red flag. This guy just, he looked at a girl that was 15 years old on the internet and he was thinking about contacting her. We could put him on the back burner. You know what I'm saying?
But he's a person of interest.
Yeah, person of interest. So they'll get to everybody eventually. Some of you have a bigger red flag than others. So if you have a bright red flag, then my suggestion would be to do something drastic and force their hand.
That would be, it's a very interesting thing too when you say that too, is I think also some of us too have, and this is something John and I have theorized, that we have something called passive and active status. So what a passive status would mean when you're not doing anything. I mean,
Right.
you're basically in a stasis. You're either learning, gaining knowledge.
Yeah, you're fucking basically boring, which is a good place to be. You're never going to get tested if you're boring.
You're never going to get tested. But then you have the active approach, which we've both hopped into as of recently. And, and now when you go from passive to active.
Oh, Andrew Tate, was he? Red flag?
So meanwhile, while we're talking about that, let me fill you in on this. So, one of the reasons I've spoken about why I pay attention to Andrew Tate and what he does is because I think he's a key indicator of what's going on right now. And what I mean by a key indicator is you look at people who are ruffling the feathers, right? And while albeit I do think he's an actor, because even in some of the interviews after he got out of jail, he said he planned this and he staged this. Very well could be.
Kind of Alex Jonesy.
He is a little bit sensationalist. He is a little bit sensationalist. I'll be honest about that. But the whole story is like he did a podcast. I forgot with who. I'll have to look it up and figure it out. But he was talking about your first strike is they try to smear you. And now take a look at what they've done to a lot of people who have spoken out. They did get smeared. I mean, look at Michael Jackson. I mean, look at Prince. Look at all of these people who started to speak out. They got smeared, and if the smearing doesn't work,
Robin Williams.
Yeah, Robin was calling it like it was the last couple years he was alive, and then
they're like, Robin Williams was with Joe. What's his name? I'm thinking like the guy from Animal House.
John Belushi.
John Belushi. He was with John Belushi on the night he died. Speculate on that. It's like, okay, so
that's what I'm saying, dude.
They're like, look what they did to Michael Jackson, dude.
I know.
Look what they did to Whitney Houston. Look what they did to everybody.
That's what they do.
They were on fentanyl and then they just died.
Yeah, it's always fentanyl. Then strike two is they try to put you in jail, which I think whether Tate had a hand in it or not. And then strike three is they kill you. But here's the thing, is they got to be really careful about killing you, because if they kill you in the wrong concept, they turn you into a martyr.
Like John McAfee.
Yep.
He's like, they're going to whack me. And then they're like, John McAfee got whacked last week.
John McAfee.
No coincidence or anything like that,
It was unexplained cause of death. It was unexplained cause of death for John McAfee. Yeah. But that's what most of it is. But that's what they do. They got to be careful about how they whack you, because in my opinion, they made a mistake with Kennedy. They definitely kind of turned him into a martyr a little bit, and hence why even the term conspiracy theorist came into being.
Like sometimes Adolf Hitler, after years of loyal service, he just gets burned up in a structure fire and definitely does not retire in Argentina at a hotel for years and years.
Does not, did not, and some of his people did not flee to Antarctica. They most definitely did not, and probably do. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
We would never want to lend any credence to that kind of a conspiracy theory.
Definitely not, man. But that's even something I brought up too. Is funny because and that seems to be the favorite narrative of a lot of people. Conspiracy theory. But I even brought up in one of my podcasts that term was invented during the Kennedy assassination by the CIA for people who question the official narrative. And lo and behold, we find out in 2016 the official narrative was a fucking lie. Dude. So what does that mean for the term conspiracy theory? What does that mean?
It's like, that movie The Dictator with Sacha Baron Cohen, and he's Aladdin, and he's like the dictator of that Wadia.
Yeah, Wadia.
And he keeps going around, and everybody he comes in contact with offends him in some way. So he's like, kill this person.
Go to jail.
So he's like, oh, I love you. You're a good person. You're so loyal. And he tells you,
you're a good person. Go there. Well, that's like.
But then he goes to New York, and he's a private citizen now because he's been through a coup. They got his body double parading as him, and he's just a guy out on the streets trying to preserve his own life. And he realizes that he goes to this hangout, this Wadia kind of hangout. and it's all the people that he had executed. They're all it's like they weren't executed. What the fuck is this?
Like, witness protection.
Okay.
Witness protection. It even reminds me of, what was that? I think it was on Parks and Rec, the dude where he's like, in my country, you go to jail. You undercook fish, you go to jail. You overcook chicken, you go to jail. You go to jail. But like, same thing, man. You know, it's like, it is just a very, it's very interesting on how, when we look at key indicators such as, you know, Andrew Tate, and, you know, even Elon Musk is a little bit of a key indicator. I don't trust him. I know a lot of people, you know, I've given you my stance on billionaires. The one thing I give Elon a little bit praise for is he is kind of bringing things to the table that we do need to address and that we do need to talk about. But then again, I'm going to take a standpoint on Neuralink's a very freaky thing, and that is some end of days revelation kind of style, beast system kind of thing.
There's
look at it. So
I feel the same way about Elon talking about Neuralink as I do about Johnny Depp depicting Hunter S. Thompson in Fear and Loathing.
That's probably
Okay? It's like depiction is not endorsement.
Depiction
I can't stress that enough.
That is true. That is true.
Like,
depiction is not.
Oh my God, Johnny Depp played Hunter S. Thompson, and he's depicting a guy that's drinking adrenochrome at the end of a Terry Gilliam movie about Hunter S. Thompson. Okay. And he was also in The Ninth Gate. And he was also in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it doesn't fucking mean anything. Basically, if you buy that, like, the depiction endorsement is not, they're not the same thing, you're lost. Basically, you're a boomer. Sorry, boomers.
You want to know what's funny, too, is
it's
like, even on the little bit of the joke, man, Johnny Depp plays Hunter S. Thompson at least once a week. At least once a week. Okay, so like, he does.
Oh, I Amber Heard, she shit in my bed, and it was pretty stinky, and had to have the sheets dry cleaned.
And then I did cocaine off the bed after the sheets were dry cleaned. But you know, neither here nor there. But that, you know, the one thing I do want to really touch base on and really kind of like drive home and deliver the point on is, you know, what we were talking about before, the background people, the NPCs, the backdrop.
That probably titled the show "Backdrop People," though, just in honor of.
We probably should. Yeah. We probably should. And you know, but this is the one thing I brought to the table, even on my last one. So, you know, what really made me kind of merit this theory was, number one, when during COVID what was happening, all of the people and how they were reacting to it. Now, I'm only 35. I know some of you probably watching are a little bit older, and some of you who might be watching are a little bit younger. Who knows? You know, I've been through probably about 4 pandemics on, you know, in my whole lifetime, and vastly worse than what COVID was.
Dude, I've been through periods that are worse than.
Oh yeah.
I mean, not experience it personally, but like as a third party.
Oh yeah.
To menstrual cycles that are much worse.
Oh yes. And you know, but I was looking at this and like, I mean, I saw red flags out the wazoo from day one. And then you had people who were literally not only buying this, but enforcing the narrative. So that's really
basically what I'm saying is that we should intubate people that are having strong PMS symptoms. Just, you know, as a matter of course.
We should die. And then, you know, so I mean, you look at that, and then that's really where I started to think. I'm like, you know, I'm always kind of like a guy who's like, you know, I do not think my fellow human beings lack this much common sense. There has to be another reason. There has to be another rhyme behind it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that there aren't people out there who lack that common sense.
Well, you know, like,
but
if I see you wearing a mask in your car, I'm going to assume it's because you need something to keep you from, you know, resisting the urge to lick the window.
They need an outdoor seatbelt.
Right.
That's what they need. Well, so the two things. Wearing a mask inside of your car by yourself is like wearing a condom by yourself. Do you wear condoms when you're by yourself? No, you don't. Mm-hmm. Okay. And people who wear masks inside of their cars, they also have the outdoor seatbelt now.
That's good.
In case you're worried about that, they have the outdoor seatbelt.
But you should also wear a life vest if you're in proximity to a body of water.
You should. It doesn't matter if it's a fountain that's only 1 foot deep, man. You should definitely have that life vest on. But you might drown in a glass of water at that point. But who knows?
Like, well, what about people who can't wear a life vest?
What about people who can't wear a life vest, dude? Oh, dude, JP does great, man. I love it when he depicts like the crying liberals, and he's just like, he'll sit there, he'll be crying, and he'll have subtitles underneath from what the cries mean. Oh my freaking god, dude. JP, I hope one day we can have you on, man, dude, because that would be be great.
It's one of my dreams is that JP will somehow become aware of this show.
That would be a great, you know. I'm sure JP and us would get along very well, but you know, that's kind of where, I started to get that theory. And also, too, this is the one theory I always entertain because, you look at the black budget for the United States.
Yeah.
It's very big. I mean, we're talking of the hundreds of billions.
Well, dude, when you have a
billions,
printing press, where's your restriction to shut down that printing press? Like, we printed ourselves a few billion yesterday. We should really not print ourselves 3 billion today.
Oh, I accidentally hit the button.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Another 3 billion.
The people are good for it, so...
Yeah, the debt system and the debt
We'll just have to kidnap a few more Chinese children to make up the difference. No big deal.
But it's like... And, so that's kind of where the black budget's so massive, right? And this, the CIA, we just talked about MK Ultra. It would not surprise me if they trained plants and put them in neighborhoods. If they trained people in this kind
like
of
Arlington Road.
Arlington Road, exactly.
Yeah, with Jeff Bridges and Tim Robbins.
That's definitely a
real movie.
It's a very big possibility. I do think that could indeed be the case, and that would even fall back into the invisible college backdrop people because they would be, in essence, members of that, just keeping it down low.
Yeah, and so these people, these actors, these less than we're assuming that everybody's watching this right now as a real person. You can pinch yourself, and you can remember being a small child. You're real. You are real. And anyone that you walk up to and say like, "Hey, can you remember being in second grade?" They'll have a story for you. It's so strange because it's almost like by interacting with someone, you ensure that they're not an NPC, because an NPC would not be able to interact with you. They are strictly just part of the scenery.
They are. It is. It's almost like they are manifestations of the simulatory reality itself.
Right.
And the one way you again, this is what I talk about looking at the subtle, is go and ask them questions, and go and interact with them. You'll notice that
there's a difference.
It takes them a long time to really answer super basic questions.
Which can be interesting, or it could be nothing. Like, I've had family members be able to not answer questions quite correctly, and it doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't mean, yeah.
That's why the plausible deniability thing is such an important aspect of this, because you're never going to prove anything to yourself. No matter how much attention to the subtle you pay, it's going to be elusive.
It's going to be elusive indeed. You are correct about that. You are, and and because of the plausible, that's why I was actually talking with Carl Wiseman about this. This is Bill Hicks actually started to lift that, guys, and that is why I think, why I think they did what they did.
That's why they had to turn him into Alex Jones.
That's why they had. Carl actually brought that up. Carl, if you're listening to this, bro, like you brought that up in my messages. I thought that was a really interesting thing. But yeah, he did turn him into Alex Jones. Could have very well been possible, man. He went from calling out the elite to talking about how the Frog should become a gay.
You're like, Joe, you're on a ride, man. Just like Bill Hicks said. Oh, I'm nothing like him. Notice that?
Well, dude, you want to know what's fucking funny, man? Is I always have my impression of Alex Jones when he's on Rogan's podcast, as he's like sitting there, and you just hear, and then he takes a shot and he goes, Joe, let me tell you something, Joe. I'm not all right. I have an alcohol.
I have a real problem right now. In fact, I'm thinking of putting a 1911 to my chin later on after I go home and just pulling the trigger, Joe.
Joe, I'm having a lot of
Alex, don't do that.
Joe, I'm having a lot of issues, And it's like, but I mean, that's actually a very good rabbit hole we should touch base on. Is that just for shits and giggles? Because
but we do, Alex, we know you're part of Mossad, and we forgive everything. Like, you know what? We don't think you should give those fuckers a dime of the money that you've fake lost in a fake lawsuit, okay?
Yeah, no, it was all show, bro, and that's what I'm talking about. It's all show. You remember it was like $1 billion.
$1 billion to Sandy Hook victims that keep forgetting what their children's names are.
No names disclosed, just victims, okay?
Yes, victims of Sandy Hook. Okay, pay that $1 billion now, okay?
I mean, it's even the same. It's the same. That whole lawsuit was the equivalent to the January 6th committee.
Operation Alex Jones Warp Speed. Play the $1 billion, please. Okay, Mr. Bigglesworth.
Mini-me, stop pumping the laser. That's for world domination later. But seriously, but like that's what I'm saying, man. Like it's a show, just like the January 6th committee. Just like the January 6th committee. And the January 6th committee is to me, it's the most hilarious thing.
We'll get that, Donald Trump, if it's the last thing we do.
Mr.
Devil bang, bang, tear up the speech.
Meanwhile, in Congress, as the FBI is getting grilled for having people. That's what I'm saying. See, that's again, talk about how they control the narrative.
Let them eat cake. I believe someone really smart said that. Yes, let them eat cake.
Smithers.
Yes. Smithers, who said let them eat cake? Was it me?
No, Mr. Burns.
No, Mr. Pelosi.
No, Mr. Pelosi. Same thing with that shit, dude. I mean, it's like you know, I mean.
Let them eat ice cream from my freezer. Yes.
From my freezer. Dude, but it reminds me of the episode of where he was getting the injections and they were dilating his pupils and freaking out.
I bring you peace.
I bring you peace.
I don't bring you peace. I bring you fear and pestilence.
This pestilence. Dude, I'm telling you, man. I mean, it's definitely the same thing. It's a show because it's trying to, again, if consciousness creates reality, like we said, if people's consciousness is focused on the January 6th community and not on Congress grilling the FBI for having their people inside of the building during the January 6th.
Dude, I couldn't even figure out. Here's how much I've lost track of time. Was January 6th false flag 2 years ago or 1 year ago? It was 2 years ago.
Yes.
2 years ago. And they're like, well, January 6th committee is about to arrest Donald Trump. It's like,
based on what? No, that's the thing. That's exactly what I'm saying. Is it's like it's, you know, this is where I do think, you know, like I can't. This is another reason why I can't believe that people lack. I'm not saying there aren't people who lack common sense and critical thinking in this world, but you know, I refuse to believe there's that many. I guess you can say. It's just like, I refuse to believe there's that many. That might just be the optimistic side of me trying to be like, I have hope and faith in humanity, which I really do. Okay, and you know,
hope and faith in humanity. I have hope and faith that one day we're gonna find out for sure how many inches Big Mike's dick actually is, you know, like, when classic. Like, is it a 4-incher or a good old 8-incher, somewhere in between?
I don't know, man. When he was wagging it on Ellen DeGeneres, it looked like a cucumber. But who fucking knows?
Yeah,
I mean, at that point. But you know, same thing, man.
These are the people that rule us. These are the people telling us to eat cake, basically.
And these are the people who are also telling us to eat bugs, know nothing, and be happy. So, like, you know, that's definitely not where we want to be. Well,
yeah.
You know what, guys? I think we're gonna call it a day today. I will be back Friday. I will have a Wednesday show, but Friday we got Ben Davidson, guys.
Wow.
I know. It's
a big get.
This is a really pivotal moment for the both of us here. I can't tell you how grateful I am. Not only grateful that Ben has taken time out of his busy life and his busy schedule to sit down with us and have some thought-provoking conversation. On top of that, I am so grateful that he is the first big guest we're going to be having.
I thought Steven was the first big guest.
Oh, thank you so much, bro. But like, you know, you guys really should stay tuned for that because Ben's been under fire himself lately by the overlords, especially, and
some censorship going on.
Censorship going on with him too, dude. You know, Ben is destroying the plausible deniability guys for climate change because he's gone up against NASA scientists and the top climate scientists and has won. He has delivered papers,
Smart guy.
Papers of it, like I said, insurmountable amounts of evidence that is there, even some of their own papers, which I find hilarious, telling them that you guys are not correct. You guys are not correct in the statements you're making and the claims you're making as well when it comes to climate change and what's going on.
Man, bear, pig.
Man, bear, pig.
Buy some.
Man, bear, pig. I'm cereal,
However
guys.
you know climate change is whether by man, bear, pig or by climate change. Or...
But man, dude, gotta love South Park. We talked about that, but you know, we're really looking forward to sit down and talking with him. He's been under fire. Also, the YouTube overlords. Ben.
Oh, look what happened to Andrew Tate with Greta Thunberg. It was like a...
Well, dude. Well, Ben Davidson is what I would call the antithesis to Greta Thunberg. He's the he dissects Greta Thunberg's argument and just lays it out on a grill and just grills it and hands it back to her. And freaking, and she, being that's kind of what he does. So like,
I saw this good meme with Greta Thunberg where it was like she was sitting on a train and she was like digging into all kinds of goodies, like like a whole table full of beers and sandwiches and stuff. And she was like, "You have stolen my childhood. You have stolen my life." And it's a bunch of, then the next frame is a bunch of like Indian kids and they're poor and they're like in a ditch trying to fill up a bowl of water. And they're like, "Great story, bro. Great story."
Great story, bro. Great story. And that
Stolen my life. You've stolen my dreams.
You want to know what's really even funny too is like I guess her email and that whole thing was small dick energy. So it was like she kind of like roasted herself in the process. That was even what Tate said about her handlers. Yeah, your handlers do a great job there, Mrs. Thunberg, with his like slightly British accent, and things like that. So you really gotta look behind the scenes.
Not that I don't really know Andrew Tate from anybody. Like he could be Jeffrey Epstein's best buddy for all I know.
Well,
But no, sorry, Jeffrey Epstein already had a best buddy. That's Bill Gates. Yeah,
that's
right.
Bill Gates. That's right.
Couldn't have two best buddies.
I think like I said, I think he's a key indicator we should be paying attention to. He has become very influential, and I'm the guy who likes to see the way things play out. I'll never.
We'll have to see how it goes.
We'll have to see how it goes, guys.
Yeah.
But remember, guys, I'll have a Wednesday show, and then we got Friday, 12 p.m. Mountain Time, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, and 11 a.m. Pacific for Ben Davidson. So we really look forward to this. And until next time, you guys, have a good one, y'all.
See you next time.
That was good.